Here's a question that separates champions from the rest. How can a tire be too cold to grip, yet too hot to handle in the very same lap? Welcome to the thermal chess match that decides races before the first real corner. Because on that formation lap, every team is fighting the same invisible opponent, temperature itself. And this matters more than you might think, because tire temperature is the single biggest variable between a perfect first lap and a disaster that costs you position, momentum, and confidence before turn one. In Formula One, the margins are already razor-thin, tenths of a second separate pole from fifth on the grid. But on that formation lap, you're not just fighting your rivals, you're fighting physics itself. A tire below operating temperature won't grip, no matter how hard you push. You'll understeer into the apex, lose the front end, or simply slide. But push too hard to warm it up, and you overheat the rubber, causing degradation, blister formation, and the opposite problem. A tire that's given its best lap before the race even starts. The team that masters this balance, who knows exactly how much weaving, how much throttle modulation, how much patience to demand on that crucial lap, they're the ones who nail that first corner. They're already thinking 3 corners ahead, while their competitors are still wrestling with cold rubber. So what's actually happening inside a tire during those moments before the lights go out? Well, imagine rubber as a material that's like cold honey. It flows, but it doesn't grip until it's warm. A tire is made up of rubber compounds, thousands of microscopic fibers, and they only create real grip when molecular friction generates heat. As a car accelerates, the tire patches in contact with track surface are essentially melting slightly, creating adhesion through a combination of mechanical grip and thermal energy. That's why cold tires feel slippery. The rubber hasn't reached the temperature window where it can lock those fibers together with the asphalt. On the formation lap, drivers will weave side to side, build some speed, then brake hard, all to scrub the tires laterally, generating friction from multiple angles. Each weave is deliberately generating heat without pushing flat out, because there's a narrow band, usually between 80 and 100 degrees Celsius, where the tire performs optimally. Below that, you're skating. Above it, you're cooking the rubber from the inside out, which is actually worse than being too cold, because now the tire is tired before the race begins. Think of tire temperature zones like Goldilocks. Not too cold, not too hot, just right. But here's where it gets chess-like. Every team sees the same formation lap, the same track, the same ambient conditions, yet they're making split-second decisions about brake timing, throttle application, and steering input that either build heat perfectly or create problems. A driver might feel the tire beginning to come in, see the car responding, and then have to dial it back because pushing harder would overshoot the window. Their engineer in the garage is watching tire temperature data, tire pressure building in real time, and they're communicating through radio. Good, okay, that's enough. Sometimes with just a few seconds to go. The airflow also matters enormously. As a car moves at even modest speed, air rushes under the car, over the tires, cooling them. So a driver weaving in a straight line might actually be fighting cooling airflow while trying to generate heat through friction. Another paradox to manage. Then there's track temperature itself. On a cold morning qualifying session, that formation lap becomes even more critical because the asphalt is cold, which means less heat transfer to the tires. A driver might do 5 or 6 aggressive weaves instead of 3. The teams that win that thermal chess match are the ones who understand their specific car's weight distribution, their driver's input style, and their tire compound's heat generation curve. They've practiced it, they've analyzed data from previous sessions, and they've built intuition. By the time that first lap braking zone arrives, some drivers are already gripping, turning, and accelerating with full confidence. Others are still adjusting, still learning what their car will do, and that's where positions slip away before lap 2 even begins. This thermal chess match came into sharp focus at the 2016 Monaco Grand Prix, where Mercedes' dominance that season was built on their superior tire warm-up management. Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg both understood that Monaco's slow-speed corners demand perfectly prepared tyres from the very first lap. There's no margin for error, no room to make up a poor start. Hamilton's pole position advantage wasn't just about raw pace. It was about confidence going into turn 1, knowing his tyres would respond exactly as expected because he'd nailed the warm-up protocol on his final lap before the grid. Compare that to drivers starting 5th, 6th or 7th. They'd been delayed by traffic or small mistakes during their last warm-up lap, and suddenly they're asking their tyres for grip in a corner that doesn't forgive hesitation. That single difference in preparation often meant the difference between a position gained or lost before the first safety car. Jump forward to 2018 and Sebastian Vettel's championship battle with Lewis Hamilton. Tyre preparation became almost weaponized between Ferrari and Mercedes. In qualifying sessions, you'd see Ferrari adjusting their warm-up line lap by lap, testing different weaving patterns, sometimes leaving bigger gaps to manage cooling, sometimes closing them up to build heat faster. They were experimenting live, gathering data about what worked on that particular day, with that particular tyre compound and that particular track surface. The team that cracked the code first often went home with pole position, but more importantly, they understood what their car needed on race day. Then there's the 2020 season at Silverstone, where tyre preparation was crucial during the middle of the COVID period, when teams had limited testing opportunities. Without that extra track time between events, engineers and drivers relied even more heavily on the formation lap data and their intuition. They couldn't experiment in Friday practice nearly as much. Teams that had good baseline knowledge from previous year's Silverstone data had a real advantage. They could hit the ground running with confidence, which meant starting lap 1 with tyres already in the optimal window. The teams scrambling to figure out conditions for the first time that weekend were playing catch-up from the very first corner. These aren't flashy moments that make highlight reels. No overtakes, no crashes, no drama that casual fans see. But for anyone watching the data, watching the timing sheets, the tyre warm-up war decided who had a winning car and who didn't. Now here's a thought experiment that really shows you how critical this thermal window is. Imagine two teams arrive at a circuit, let's say hypothetically at a modern Grand Prix, with identical cars, identical tyre compounds, and identical setups on paper. One team has perfected their formation lap. Smooth inputs, precise throttle control, a surgeon's touch on the brake pedal. They nurse those tyres up to operating temperature methodically, so when the lights go out, the rubber is at 95 degrees Celsius and ready to fire. The other team, they're aggressive from the parade lap. Harder braking, more aggressive acceleration, trying to build heat quickly. Their tyres hit 105 degrees before lap 1 even starts. Now, conventional wisdom says hotter is better, right? But here's where it gets interesting. Those overheated tyres peak and then start to degrade almost immediately when they hit full throttle. They're sliding where they should grip, bleeding pace from turn 1. Meanwhile, the first team's tyres are still climbing into their optimal window, still improving through corners, still building confidence into lap 2 and beyond. The team that was patient, that understood the trajectory of the thermal curve, not just the absolute number. They've gained tenths they can't even see on the first lap, but you'll see it all race long. That's the hidden battle nobody talks about, but every engineer in the paddock knows it's won or lost before the race even starts. So here's what we're taking away today. Tyre warm-up isn't about reaching the hottest number on the dashboard. It's about understanding the thermal trajectory, knowing when your tyre will peak grip, not just assuming hotter means faster. And third, the teams that master this invisible battle gain advantages lap 1, but collect them across the entire race. That's why you see some cars explosively fast early and then fade, while others build momentum and hunt through the field. It all starts with thermal patience. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which aspect of tyre strategy fascinates you most? Mechanical grip, tyre deg, or something else entirely? Drop your answer in the comments below, And while you're there, hit subscribe so you never miss when we dive deeper into the hidden engineering battles that decide races. Thanks for joining us in the paddock.